Hello guys, I hope you are doing well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lona and I'm a planning and evolution engineer. And as a planning and evolution engineer, I touch on various aspects of IT. So if you're new here, karibu sana. Remember to check on my previous videos. This is a YouTube channel where we share IT information in general, information that we feel like it's useful for us in our IT careers. So check on those videos, kindly watch them if you haven't. Also leave a like on each and every of those videos. Also leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the videos. If there's anything you feel like you want me to talk about, kindly leave it in the comment section. And also kindly share the videos as much as you can. Kindly also subscribe to this YouTube channel. So today guys, I want us to look at the most basic things that a person who is looking for an entry-level job in the IT industry should know. So these are the kind of information which cuts across the different sectors of IT. I'm not going to limit myself to a specific sector, but I'm going to share like general information that's really key for us to understand when you're coming out and looking for that entry-level job. This is the kind of information that will actually help you to even go further into your career, because you'll be able to apply them even going forward. But when you're in that interview as an entry level person, what is that information that's really key for you to be able to have at that particular time? So as I said, these are the information that cuts across the different sectors of IT. So it doesn't matter whether you want to become a network engineer or a technical support person, or a sysadmin, or a developer. It doesn't really matter. The information cuts across the different sectors of IT, and it's really key for you to be able to have them at your fingertips. So make sure that you watch the video to the end. Pick the points that I'm going to share, because I'm not going to go so much into details. I'm probably just going to mention and maybe give a small definition, but make sure that you take it upon yourself to look for further information that will make you to understand them as much as you can. So number one, OSI model. So OSI model is really key when it comes to computing. It's a framework that defines communication of devices in a networked environment. So when you have devices being able to share information among one another, being able to communicate, being able to reach internet and retrieve information from the internet, that's possible through the protocols and rules defined in the OSI model. So once you understand the OSI model, you should be able to explain how devices communicate in a network. So one of the key questions that will come about in an interview is to explain what is OSI model, and also to list and explain the layers of the OSI model. So you should be able to understand all the layers. Remember, OSI model has 7 layers, from the physical layer all the way to the application layer, layer number 7. So you should be able to have them at your fingertips. First of all, explain what is OSI model, what is it used for, what are the layers of the OSI model, and what protocols can you find in each and every layer of the OSI model. And also another question can come differently, like being asked to explain how devices are able to communicate in a network and share information. So when you understand the OSI model, that will be a question that will be really easy for you to explain. So make sure that you really understand the OSI model, because it's one of the questions that you won't miss when it comes to an entry-level job interview. Number two, understand IP addressing. So IP addressing is remember, IP addresses are used by devices to communicate in a network. So each device in a network has an IP address. So you should be able to understand what is an IP address. And for you understanding the OSI model layers, layer 3 is where you find the IP addressing. So once you understand that layer 3 of the OSI model, it will be easy for you to understand IP addressing. So you should know what is an IP address, how to assign an IP address to a device. So remember, there are 2 ways of assigning an IP address. You can assign statically, so that IP address will not change unless you change it by yourself, or use of DHCP protocol that automatically assigns IP addresses to devices in a network. And remember, when you use DHCP, that those IP addresses can actually change with time. So you should really know when to use DHCP and when to statically assign an IP address to a device. Also understand the different types of IPs. We have IP version 4 and you have IP version 6. So make sure that you really know the format of an IP version 4 address and the format for IP version 6 address. Another thing is, I understand the difference between private IP addresses and public IP addresses. So when do you use, what are private IP addresses and what are public IP addresses? So when do you use the private IP addresses and when do you use the public IP addresses? So make sure that you really understand. Also, when you come to private IP addresses, make sure that you understand the classes of private IP addresses. We have class A, we have class B, and we have class C. So which ones are class A? Private IP addresses. What's the range for class B IP addresses, and what's the range for class C IP addresses? So make sure that you really have those ones in your fingertips, because those are the questions that will definitely come to you during that entry level job interview. Number 3, understand what you call subnetting. So once you understand IP addressing, you should also be able to understand subnetting. So subnetting is a way of segmenting a network into smaller networks called subnets, and it's also a very nice way of making you to be able to efficiently use the IP addresses that you have. So when you want to segment a big network into smaller networks, that is called subnetting, and then you assign a range of IPs to each and every of those small networks. That's what we call subnets. So make sure that you know what subnetting is all about. Just go online and search about subnetting. Make sure that you really understand how subnetting works, and especially for someone who wants to become a network engineer, that's a question that you won't miss in that entry-level interview. You'll be asked what is subnetting and how you do subnetting, just to make sure that you're breaking a big network into smaller networks. So understand subnetting as well. Number 4, understand network protocols and ports. So network protocols, these are the protocols that devices use to communicate in a network. For example, when you understand OSI model really well, layer 4 of the OSI model, we have what we call transport layer, and that is where you find these communication protocols. So that's where you'll come across UDP and TCP communication protocols. So you really need to understand what is UDP and what is TCP. One of the very common questions when it comes to entry-level interviews is to explain the difference between TCP and UDP protocols. Explain the difference between the two and where each of them can be applied. So make sure that you really understand what is UDP and what is TCP communication protocols and where each one of them can be applied. Another very common questions when it comes to TCP and UDP is to explain how TCP three-way handshake works. So make sure that you understand how TCP works and understand the three-way handshake of TCP protocol and how it ensures that devices are able to exchange information in a network. So that is communication protocol. There are other protocols that you also need to understand. They're not necessarily in the layer 4 of the OSI model, but you really need to know things like HTTP and HTTPS, things like FTP, SFTP, SMTP, DNS, SSH. Those are the protocols that you also need to have them in your fingertips. And the one key question that can come out of that is to mention the default ports of those protocols. So you really need to know the default ports of those protocols. Like when you talk about HTTP, it's port 80, HTTPS, it's port 443, things like, SFTP, FTP, SSH, port 22, FTP, I think it's port 21 if I'm not wrong. So make sure that you really understand those protocols and their default ports and what they are used for. Okay, so number 5, understand the inbuilt firewall of our devices. So if you're working on Windows or Linux, for example, if each of those devices has an inbuilt firewall, so you really need to understand the inbuilt firewall of a Windows and a Linux device. You'll be asked how maybe to maybe open a port using that inbuilt firewall, especially if you're running Linux. You need to understand about IP tables. You need to understand UFW, firewall D, what else? Yeah, those ones. IP tables, UFW, and firewall. So you really need to understand that inbuilt firewall of those systems, especially for Linux, because Linux is one of those mostly used servers out there to run applications, and that inbuilt firewall really come handy when you're opening and closing ports and when you're allowing traffic from different networks. So make sure that you really understand how to use that inbuilt port of our servers. Could be Windows or Linux. Number 6, understand what you call DNS. DNS is really key when it comes to networking and communication in a network. So DNS is a domain name system. So it's what enables us to that translation of IP addresses to human readable names. For example, if you are to search something like Amazon.com, for example, from the internet, if you are to search that using the IP address, that could be really hard. So the fact that we have these very easy names that you can search anything using that name, that is what DNS does. It translates the IP addresses into human readable names that can make it easy for us to look for information. So make sure that you really understand DNS. So many questions can come from DNS. Of course, you'll be asked what is DNS, what DNS stands for, that's domain name system, and also you'll be asked how it works, how it does that translation from an IP address to a domain name. So make sure that you know what DNS is all about. So go online or YouTube, search about DNS, and make sure that you have those information about DNS at your fingertips, because it's one of those questions that will never miss in that entry level job interview. Number 6, I think I'm in number 6 if I'm not wrong, understand the type of networks. Understand the local area network and also understand the wide area network. Or when are you, working with a local area network and when are you working with a wide area? So that it is, guys. I hope the video is going to be useful to you, and I really hope that I've addressed some of the maybe questions that you had about an entry level job interview. So if I may list the points again from start: understand OSI model, understand IP addressing, understand subnetting, understand DNS, understand the inbuilt firewall of our servers, could be Windows or Linux. Also understand the types of networks, that is the wide area network and the local area network, and also understand the network protocols and ports. So I really, really wish you the best as you prepare for any interview that's coming your way. And also, if you feel like there's something which I left out, kindly comment in the comment section. Let me know in the comment section if there's something that you want me to talk about specifically. And kindly share the video as much as far as you can. If you find it useful, kindly share to your friends, and also make sure that they can also reach this kind of information which we are sharing here. Remember, we say it is a YouTube channel where we are just generally sharing information that we feel like it's useful for each and every person who is coming or already in the IT industry. So until next time, guys, bye, and remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel. See ya.